My name is Cassidy, and I'm 32 years old. I'm a single mother of 2 beautiful kids, and 3 weeks before Christmas, my phone rang with news that shattered my world. My mom's voice came through the line, tight and uncomfortable, and then she said the words I'll never forget. Your brother is bringing his new girlfriend's family this year, so we won't have room for you and the kids. I stood there in my kitchen, phone trembling in my hand, unable to process what I'd just heard. This was supposed to be our first Christmas since my divorce finalized, the year we needed family support more than ever. That's when I realized my own mother had chosen my brother's girlfriend over her own grandchildren. Before we dive into what happened next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you've ever felt excluded by your own family, please hit that like button so I know I'm not alone. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story takes turns you won't believe, and trust me, you'll want to hear how I handled what came next. Now, let me take you back to how we got here. Growing up, I was always the responsible daughter, the one everyone could count on when things fell apart. Our family looked perfect from the outside, the kind you'd see in holiday cards with everyone smiling, but underneath that polished surface ran currents of favoritism that shaped everything. My younger brother Nathan, who's 29 now, could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. He was her golden child, the boy she'd always dreamed of having, and I learned early that my role was to support, to help, to fade into the background when he needed to shine. When our father passed away 8 years ago from a sudden heart attack, I was the one who moved back home for 6 months to help Mom through her grief. I was 24 then, just starting my nursing career, but I put everything on hold because family came first. Nathan was traveling through Europe at the time, finding himself, and nobody expected him to cut his trip short. That was just Nathan being Nathan, and Mom made excuses for him like she always did. I held her hand through the funeral arrangements, sorted through Dad's belongings, sat with her during the long nights when the silence of the house became unbearable. When Nathan finally came home 3 months later, Mom threw a welcome party. I met my ex-husband Derek when I was 24. Right after I'd returned to my own apartment following those months of caring for Mom. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep who came through the hospital, charming and attentive, everything I thought I wanted after feeling invisible for so long. We married when I was 26 in a modest ceremony that Mom complained wasn't elegant enough, though she never offered to help pay for anything larger. She'd just finished giving Nathan $15,000 for a failed business venture, but that was different, she explained, because Nathan was investing in his future. My daughter Mia came along when I was 27, a beautiful baby with wide, curious eyes and my father's gentle smile. She's 7 now, smart as a whip, loves reading chapter books that most kids her age won't touch for another year. 2 years after Mia, we had Lucas, my wild child, my little adventurer who's now 5 and obsessed with dinosaurs and building elaborate towers out of anything he can stack. Watching them grow filled my heart in ways I didn't know were possible, and for a while, I thought we had built something stable, something lasting. The divorce happened 6 months ago, a bomb that exploded my carefully constructed life into pieces I am still trying to reassemble. I came home early from a shift at the hospital one afternoon and found Derek in our bedroom with Shayna, a woman from his office I'd met exactly twice at company events. The image of them together burned itself into my brain. One of those moments that divides your life into before and after. The divorce was quick because Derek didn't fight it, too eager to move forward with his new relationship to care about dragging things out. He got the house because his name was on the mortgage first, and I got primary custody because he travels constantly for work and didn't really want the responsibility of daily parenting anyway. So now I'm working full-time as a nurse in the pediatric unit, pulling every overtime shift I can get, living in a 2-bedroom apartment that's clean but cramped, trying to give my kids stability while barely holding myself together some days. The exhaustion sits in my bones, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix because it's not just physical, it's the weight of doing everything alone. Mia has started asking why Daddy doesn't call more often, and Lucas still looks for Derek's car in the parking lot when we get home from school sometimes. I'm failing them, I think, on the hard days, even though Rowena, my best friend since nursing school, keeps telling me I'm doing better than I know. Christmas has always been our tradition, the one thing I could count on every year. We'd go to Mom's house on Christmas Eve, and the kids would run through the door into her waiting arms while she exclaimed over how much they'd grown. She made these incredible gingerbread cookies shaped like reindeer, decorated the house with lights that made everything feel magical, played old records of carols that Dad used to love. Mia and Lucas talked about Grandma's Christmas starting in October, counting down the days, drawing pictures of what they hoped Santa would bring to Grandma's house. It was the one time of year when I felt like maybe we really were the family it always wanted us to be. This year, I thought it would be even more important. I'd told Mom about the divorce over the phone back in June, and Shed made sympathetic sounds but then immediately asked if I'd considered trying harder to make it work. When I explained about the affair, Shed sighed and said marriages took effort from both people, implying somehow that Derek's cheating was partially my fault for not being attentive enough. Still, I assumed Shed recognized that Mia and Lucas needed the stability of family traditions now more than ever, that Christmas at Grandma's would be the bright spot in what had been a devastating year for them. Nathan had mentioned 2 months ago that he was dating someone serious. A woman named Amber had met at some networking event downtown. I hadn't met her yet, hadn't even seen a photo, but Mom brought her up in every conversation, always with this breathless excitement about how accomplished Amber was, how she came from such a good family, how Nathan might finally be settling down with someone appropriate. The way she said appropriate made my stomach turn, like all of Nathan's previous girlfriends had been beneath him somehow, not good enough for her precious son. I had no idea that Amber would become the reason my children got excluded from Christmas, that my brother's new relationship would be the final proof of where I ranked in my mother's heart, but I was about to find out exactly how little I mattered. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of quiet night I'd learned to treasure since the divorce. I'd just gotten both kids bathed and into their pajamas, read 3 chapters of the book Mia was obsessed with, and convinced Lucas that his stuffed triceratops would protect him from any monsters that might dare enter his room. The apartment was finally peaceful, toys scattered across the living room floor like evidence of the full life happening within these walls, and I'd poured myself a glass of the cheap wine I allowed myself once a week when the exhaustion felt particularly heavy. My phone lit up with Mom's name, and I felt that familiar flutter of hope mixed with anxiety that came with her calls. I answered eagerly, expecting we'd finalize the details for Christmas, maybe discuss what I could bring or what time we should arrive. "Hi, Mom," I said, settling into the worn couch that had come with the furnished apartment, already mentally planning the schedule for Christmas Eve. "Cassidy, hi sweetie," she started, but something in her voice was off, that strained quality she got when she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. We made small talk for a few minutes, her asking about the kids and my work in that distracted way that meant she was building up to something. My stomach started tightening, that instinct you develop when you've spent your whole life reading someone's moods for survival. Then she dropped the bomb. "So, I wanted to talk to you about Christmas plans," she said, the words coming faster now, like she wanted to get them out before she lost her nerve. "Nathan is bringing his girlfriend Amber, and she wants her parents and sister to join us for the celebration." She paused, and I waited, not understanding yet why this required a special phone call. "The thing is, honey, the dining room only seats 12 people, and with Amber's family, That's already 10 people with Nathan and Amber included. I did the math in my head, confusion clouding my thoughts. Okay, but what about me and the kids? That's 3 more, which would be 13 total. I was still trying to be helpful, thinking maybe we could rent an extra table or rearrange the furniture. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats before Mom spoke again. Well, that's what I'm calling about. Nathan really wants to impress Amber's family. This relationship is so important to him, and I think she might be the one. We need everything to be perfect, and with that many people, it would just be too crowded and stressful. The words weren't connecting right in my brain. I heard them individually but couldn't make them form the meaning they were obviously meant to convey. Mom, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying that maybe it would be better if you and the kids didn't come this year. She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. You could visit on Christmas Eve instead. Maybe in the afternoon before Amber's family arrives. We could do a quick gift exchange. The room tilted slightly, my vision narrowing to a single point on the wall across from me. You're uninviting your own grandchildren from Christmas. My voice came out flat, emotionless, because my brain couldn't process enough to add feeling to the words yet. Don't be dramatic, Cassidy. Mom's tone shifted to defensive, the way it always did when I challenged her. It's not like that. This is just 1 year, and Nathan really needs our support right now. When you meet Amber, you'll understand. She's from a very prominent family in town. Her father owns that commercial real estate company downtown, and they're used to a certain level of hospitality. I want to make a good impression. A good impression, I repeated, my hand gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. You want to make a good impression on strangers by excluding your own daughter and grandchildren. You're twisting this into something it's not, Mom said, her voice getting sharper. Nathan needs this. Has finally found someone who could give him stability, help him build a real future. This could be very important for his career too. With her father's connections. Besides, won't the kids be spending Christmas with Derek anyway? That question hit me like a slap. Derek is spending Christmas with his new girlfriend in Florida, Mom. I told you that 3 weeks ago. My voice cracked on the last words, the emotion finally breaking through. Oh, well, I guess I forgot. She didn't sound sorry. Then this is actually a good opportunity for you to start your own traditions. Make Christmas special at your apartment. The kids are young, they'll adjust. They've been talking about Grandma's Christmas for 2 months. I could feel tears burning behind my eyes but refused to let them fall. Not yet. Mia drew you a picture of the 3 of you making cookies together. Lucas practices singing Jingle Bells because he wants to perform it for you. That's very sweet, Mom said, but her tone was dismissive, already moving past my words. Look, I need to go. I have a lot of planning to do for the dinner. Well, figure out a time for you to visit on Christmas Eve. I'll text you. Mom, please don't do this. I hated how my voice sounded, small and pleading, like a child begging for attention. I'm sorry you're upset, but this is what's happening. Nathan is my son too, and he deserves my support. I'll talk to you later. The line went dead before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone in the dim light of my living room. She didn't call back. Not that night, not the next day. I sat on that couch for an hour after we hung up, the wine forgotten, my mind replaying the conversation over and over, trying to find the moment where I could have said something different that would have changed the outcome. But there was no such moment. This wasn't about anything I'd said or done. This was about the fundamental truth I'd been avoiding my whole life. When it came down to choosing between Nathan and me, my mother would always choose Nathan. The worst part was knowing I had to tell Mia and Lucas. Had to find words to explain why they wouldn't be going to Grandma's for Christmas without making them feel unwanted and rejected. How do you protect your children's hearts from the grandmother who's supposed to love them unconditionally when that grandmother has already made it clear they're not a priority? I cried that night after the call, sitting alone in my kitchen with my head in my hands, feeling more abandoned than I had even when Derek left, because at least with Derek I could see it coming. This betrayal came wrapped in holiday cheer and family obligation, and somehow that made it cut so much deeper. The next morning arrived too quickly, sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of our apartment with an optimism that felt cruel given what I had to do. I heard Maya's door open first, her footsteps padding down the hallway, and then Lucas tumbling out of his room with his usual morning energy. They climbed onto the kitchen chairs while I made scrambled eggs and toast, trying to keep my hands steady and my face neutral even though I'd barely slept. "Mommy, how many more days until we go to Grandma's house?" Mia asked, swinging her legs under the table. She'd been keeping count on a homemade calendar in her room, crossing off each day with a big red marker. Her excitement had been one of the few bright spots in the difficult months since the divorce. My throat tightened around words I didn't want to say. I set their plates down carefully, buying myself a few more seconds, then sat down across from them trying to figure out how to shatter their happiness as gently as possible. "So, about Christmas at Grandma's house," I started, watching their faces light up at the mention. "Grandma's house is going to be very full this year with other guests, and she's worried about having enough space for everyone." Maya's smile faded instantly, her 7-year-old brain processing faster than I wanted it to. "But we always go to Grandma's. We go every single year. It's tradition." Her voice rose with each sentence, panic edging in. "I know, sweetheart, but this year is going to be different. Uncle Nathan is bringing his new girlfriend and her family, and Grandma wants to make sure she can give them all her attention." I was trying so hard not to badmouth my mother, to leave some relationship intact even as she burned the bridge between us. Lucas' lower lip started trembling. "But I want Grandma's gingerbread cookies. She makes them with the white frosting and the little silver balls." Tears spilled over his round cheeks, and my heart cracked clean through watching him cry. "Well, make our own cookies here," I said, reaching across to wipe his tears even as I felt my own threatening. "Well, make them together, and they'll be just as special. Maybe even more special because we'll make them as a family." "Doesn't Grandma want to see us anymore?" Mia asked, her voice small and wounded in a way that made me want to scream. She'd picked up her fork but wasn't eating, just pushing the eggs around her plate while her eyes filled with confusion. "Of course she does, baby." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. "This is just about space, not about how much she loves you. We'll see her another time." I pulled both kids into a hug, holding them while Lucas sobbed into my shoulder, and Mia stayed rigid with the kind of hurt that turns into anger later. The rest of that day was terrible. Mia withdrew into herself, unusually quiet, spending hours in her room instead of playing or reading like normal. Lucas was clingy, following me from room to room, asking every 20 minutes if we were sure we couldn't go to Grandma's, maybe if we promised to be really good and not take up much space. Every question felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest because I couldn't fix this for them, couldn't make their grandmother choose them the way they deserved. That evening, after they finally fell asleep, I sat on the edge of Maya's bed and watched her peaceful face in the dim glow of her nightlight. She looked so much like my father in that moment, and I wondered what he would think of his wife excluding his grandchildren from Christmas. Dad had always made everyone feel included, important, loved. He would have been furious. I picked up my phone and texted Mom, my fingers shaking with anger and grief. "The kids are heartbroken." Mia cried herself to sleep. "Lucas doesn't understand why Grandma doesn't want them there. Please reconsider. They need family right now." The message showed as read almost immediately, but hours passed with no response. I watched my phone obsessively, hoping for some sign that my mother's heart had softened. that Shed realized what she was doing to her grandchildren. Finally, at almost 11 at night, my phone buzzed with her reply. "I'm sorry you're upset. This is hard for everyone. Let's talk after the holidays when things calm down." After the holidays, after Shed already had her perfect Christmas with Nathan and his girlfriend's family, after my kids had already spent Christmas morning wondering why they weren't good enough for their grandmother, the message was clear. She wasn't changing her mind, and she didn't actually care how much this hurt us. We were expected to simply accept being discarded. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the apartment building settling around me, feeling more alone than I could ever remember feeling. My marriage had ended, leaving me to raise 2 kids by myself. My mother had chosen my brother's new girlfriend over her own grandchildren. I was working myself to exhaustion trying to keep us afloat financially. And Christmas, the one time of year that was supposed to be about family and love and togetherness, had become just another reminder of how disposable I was to the people who were supposed to love me most. 3 days crawled by in a fog of hurt and confusion, me trying to maintain normalcy for the kids while feeling like my foundation had crumbled beneath me. Then Rowena called, her voice tight with that particular anger she got when someone hurt the people she loved. "I need to tell you something, and you're going to be pissed." She started without preamble. "What happened?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I could handle any more bad news. "I saw your mom at the grocery store this morning, the expensive one downtown where she never shops because she always complains about the prices." Rowena paused, and I could hear her choosing her words carefully. "Cass, her cart was completely full. Fancy cheeses, imported crackers, those expensive cuts of meat from the butcher counter, flowers, expensive wine." She was going all out. My stomach dropped. Maybe she's just preparing for Christmas. That's not even the worst part. Rowena's voice got harder. She was talking to Beth Morrison, you know, the woman from her book club. I was in the next aisle, but I could hear everything. "Your mom was bragging, Cassidy. She was saying how she's hosting Nathan's girlfriend's family for Christmas, how she wants to make the best impression because they're from such a prominent family in town. She was actually excited about it." The room spun slightly. "She was bragging about excluding us. She didn't mention you at all. It was like you and the kids don't exist. Beth even asked if you were coming, and your mom just glossed right over it, said something vague about having a full house and changed the subject to talk about how sophisticated Amber's mother is." Rowena's anger was palpable through the phone. "Half the people in our town know what she's doing, Cass. She's literally bragging about replacing you." I sat down hard on my couch, the humiliation washing over me in waves. It was one thing to be excluded privately, but my mother was making it public, performing her new chosen family for our small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. People I saw at the grocery store, at the kids' school events, at the hospital where I worked, they were all going to know that my own mother had deemed me not important enough to include in Christmas. After I hung up with Rowena, some masochistic impulse drove me to look up Nathan's girlfriend on social media. It took only minutes to find her. Amber Sutton, with a profile full of carefully curated photos. She was beautiful in that polished way that came from money and professional styling. Every picture showing her at expensive restaurants, charity galas, country club events. Her family's wealth was obvious in every post, that casual display of privilege that people born into money learn to present as normal. I scrolled through recent posts, my chest getting tighter with each swipe. There it was, from 2 days ago, a photo of Amber and Nathan at some upscale wine bar, her head on his shoulder, both of them looking annoyingly perfect. The caption read, "Can't wait to spend Christmas with Nathan's wonderful family. So grateful to be welcomed with open arms during the holidays." The post had dozens of likes and comments gushing about how sweet they looked together. My mother had commented, "Right there in public for everyone to see. Mom had written. "We're so happy to have you, sweetheart. You're already part of the family." I read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper. Already part of the family. After knowing Nathan for 2 months, Amber was already part of the family, while I, the daughter who'd spent my whole life trying to earn my mother's approval, was too inconvenient to include. The comments from Amber's friends were worse. "His mom sounds so welcoming," one wrote. "You're so lucky to have such a warm future mother-in-law," said another. I wanted to comment myself. Wanted to tell all these strangers that my mother was only welcoming when it served her interests, that she'd thrown away her actual grandchildren to perform this warmth for people she'd never met. But I didn't. I just closed the app and sat there feeling sick. I called Nathan directly. It went to voicemail, his casual recorded voice asking me to leave a message. "Nathan, it's your sister. I need you to call me back. This thing with Mom and Christmas is not okay. Those are your niece and nephew shiz excluding. Please call me." My voice cracked at the end, emotion overwhelming the anger I'd tried to maintain. 2 days passed with no response. 2 entire days where my brother, who had defended and protected and covered for our entire lives, couldn't be bothered to call his sister back. Then, finally, a text message lit up my phone. "Cass, don't make this a big deal. Mom's just trying to help me out. This relationship is really important." My fingers flew over the keyboard. "Help you out? By excluding your niece and nephew from Christmas? They're devastated. Nathan." The response came quickly this time. "Come on, you know how Mom is. Just let her have this. It's one Christmas. You can start your own traditions. Why is your relationship more important than mine?" I typed back, knowing even as I sent it that he wouldn't have a real answer. "Maybe if you'd kept your marriage together, you wouldn't be so sensitive about family stuff right now." I stared at that text for a full minute, reading it over and over, unable to believe my own brother had typed those words and hit send. He was blaming me for Derek's affair, suggesting that my divorce somehow made me less deserving of family support, implying that my pain wasn't valid because I'd failed to keep my cheating husband from destroying our marriage. The cruelty of it took my breath away. This was the brother I'd helped with homework when he was struggling in school. The brother whose college application essays I'd edited even though I was drowning in my own coursework. The brother I'd lent money to multiple times, money I never saw again. The brother whose drunk driving charge I'd helped cover up when he was 22 so Mom wouldn't find out and be disappointed in her golden boy. And now he was telling me that my destroyed marriage meant I should accept being thrown away by our mother. I didn't respond to that text. What was there to say? Had shown me exactly where I ranked in his priorities, and it was nowhere. My brother, my mother, the family I'd spent my entire life trying to be good enough for that all made it crystal clear that I was expendable, that my pain didn't matter, that my children's feelings were irrelevant compared to Nathan's need to impress his new girlfriend's family. I blocked his number after that. I couldn't keep torturing myself with his messages, couldn't keep hoping he'd suddenly develop empathy or loyalty or basic human decency. He was 30 years old, and if he hadn't learned by now that family meant showing up for each other in hard times, then he never would. I was done making excuses for him, done protecting him from consequences, done pretending we were close when he'd never once been there for me in any meaningful way. 1 week before Christmas, an email notification lit up my phone while I was on break at the hospital. The sender was my mother, and the subject line read, "Christmas gift money." Every year since Mia was born, Mom had given each immediate family member $200 specifically designated for buying Christmas gifts. It wasn't a fortune, but for me, struggling on a single income and trying to give my kids a decent Christmas, that $200 meant the difference between modest gifts and having nothing under our small tree. I opened the email, expecting the usual message about when I could pick up the check or if she'd mail it. Instead, I found 3 short sentences. Due to the expense of hosting this year, I won't be able to provide gift money. I'm sure you understand. See you after the holidays. My first thought was that she must be spending a lot on this Christmas dinner if she couldn't spare $400 for me and the kids. My second thought was wondering if Nathan was also not getting gift money this year. Then I noticed that an image file was attached to the email, something Mom rarely did since she was barely computer literate. I clicked on it, expecting maybe a photo of Christmas decorations or a recipe she wanted to share. Instead, my screen filled with a photo of a check made out to Nathan for $500. The memo line read, "Christmas for Amber." But it was the text caption visible at the top of the image that made my blood run cold. A little extra for Nathan to buy Amber something special. She'd meant to send that image to someone else, probably to brag about how generous she was being to Nathan, and had accidentally included it in my email. My mother wasn't cutting gift money because she couldn't afford it. She was giving me nothing while increasing Nathan's gift by more than double, specifically so he could impress his girlfriend. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely take screenshots, but I managed to capture everything before she could realize her mistake and delete the evidence. Then I called her immediately, not caring that I was still on my break at work and probably should have waited until I was home. "Hello," Mom answered, her voice cheerful and unsuspecting. "I got your email," I said, my voice tight with barely controlled fury. "And I saw the check to Nathan." Silence. Then, "Oh, that wasn't meant for you to see." Clearly. "But I did see it. So you're cutting my gift money entirely while giving Nathan $500. I was standing now, pacing the small break room while my coworkers pretended not to listen. "That's different. Nathan has obligations right now. He needs to buy Amber a nice gift and meet expectations with her family. You understand how important first impressions are." She said it so reasonably, like she was explaining something obvious to a slow child. I'm a single mother struggling to buy my kids presents. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "I have obligations too. To your grandchildren. Maybe if you managed your money better, you wouldn't be in this position." Her tone had shifted from reasonable to condescending. "I had to help Nathan. He has important obligations right now. This could affect his entire future." "What about my obligations?" I was fully yelling now, past caring who heard me. "What about your grandchildren's future? Or do they not matter because they're mine instead of Nathan's?" "You're being selfish, Cassidy. This isn't about you. Nathan's future is at stake. If he impresses Amber's family, it could lead to business opportunities, professional connections. This is bigger than Christmas gifts." She actually sounded exasperated with me, like I was the unreasonable one in this conversation. "You're right. This isn't about me. It's about Mia and Lucas, your grandchildren, who you've decided aren't worth $200 for Christmas gifts because you'd rather give Nathan extra money to impress his girlfriend of 2 months. I was crying now, tears of rage and hurt streaming down my face while I stood in the hospital break room. "You're always jealous of Nathan." Mom's voice went cold. "You've been jealous since we were children. He's finally doing well, finally found someone who could give him stability. And you can't stand to see him happy. I've spent my entire life helping him." The words exploded out of me. I helped him with school, lent him money, covered for him, supported him through every failed business idea and every crisis. When Dad died, I came home to help you while Nathan stayed in Europe. When you had surgery, I took time off work to care for you. Nathan sent flowers. When have I ever been anything but supportive? That's what daughters do. She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world, like my sacrifices were simply expected while Nathan's basic existence deserved to be rewarded. And mothers exclude their daughters from Christmas and cut off financial support while increasing it for their sons. I shot back. The line went dead. Shed hung up on me. I stood there staring at my phone, mascara running down my face, while my coworkers awkwardly looked away. It never felt more worthless in my entire life. My own mother had just told me that supporting Nathan's relationship was more important than helping me provide Christmas for her grandchildren. I forced myself to finish my shift, going through the motions of checking on young patients while my mind spun with hurt and disbelief. When I finally got home that night and put the kids to bed, I sat down and started really thinking about the pattern. This wasn't new. The favoritism had always been there. It just learned not to see it. Nathan's college was fully paid for by mom and dad. Mine was partially covered, with me taking out loans for the rest because there wasn't enough money to fully fund both of us. Even though Nathan's private school tuition costs significantly more than my state university, Nathan got a car for his 16th birthday. I'd bought my own at 22 with money I'd saved from working double shifts at my first nursing job. When Nathan got a DUI at 22, Mom paid his lawyer fees and the fines. When I got a parking ticket at the hospital, Shed lectured me about being more responsible. The pattern was everywhere once I started looking. Every achievement of Nathan's was celebrated with dinners and gifts and social media posts. My nursing degree, my wedding, the births of my children all acknowledged with cards and brief phone calls. When Nathan lost his job for the third time in 5 years, it was the economy or bad management, or he's too talented for them to recognize. When my marriage ended, it was somehow my fault for not trying harder. And the money, how had I never added it up before? The $15,000 for his failed brewery idea, the $8,000 to help him move cross-country for a job that lasted 3 months, the $5,000 to consolidate his credit card debt, the constant small amounts, $200 here, $500 there for emergencies that were always his fault but somehow deserving of rescue. Meanwhile, I'd asked to borrow $3,000 to cover unexpected medical bills after Maya's emergency appendectomy, and Mom had said she simply didn't have it to spare. That was the same month Shed bought Nathan a new laptop because his old one was outdated. My phone rang. It was Aunt Lenora, my mom's younger sister, someone I didn't hear from often but who'd always been kind during family gatherings. "Cassidy, honey, I just heard about the Christmas situation from your mom. I need you to know what she's telling people." My stomach dropped. "What is she saying?" "She's telling the family that you chose not to come to Christmas, that you wanted to start your own traditions with the kids and declined her invitation. She's making herself the victim, saying she's sad you won't be there but respects your decision." Lenora's voice was tight with suppressed anger. "She's rewriting the whole thing to make you look like the one pulling away from family." The room tilted. "She uninvited us. She literally called to tell me there wasn't room for us because Nathan's girlfriend's family was coming." "I believe you, sweetheart. I know my sister, and I know how she operates. But she's already got half the family thinking you're the one being difficult." Lenora sighed heavily. "I'm sorry, I thought you should know what narrative she's pushing." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my living room, feeling the full weight of what my mother was doing to me. She wasn't just excluding me from Christmas, she was systematically cutting me off financially, publicly humiliating me, rewriting history to make herself the victim, and turning family members against me. And all of it so Nathan could play house with his new girlfriend and her family, so my mother could climb the social ladder by association with people who had more money and status than we did. I was being erased from my own family, slowly but deliberately. And the person doing it was the woman who'd given birth to me. 5 days before Christmas, I came home from work to find a certified letter waiting in my mailbox, my name typed on the front in formal lettering that immediately set off alarm bells. I tore it open standing right there in the apartment building lobby, my heart pounding with dread even before I'd read a single word. The letterhead showed the name of a law firm downtown. Expensive attorneys that people like me couldn't afford. The letter itself was brief and devastating. Dear Miss Cassidy Morrison, per your mother's request, we are writing to inform you of updates to her estate planning and last will and testament. My eyes skipped down the page, catching on phrases that made my vision blur. The family residence, valued at approximately $400,000, will be left in its entirety to Nathan James Morrison, and investment accounts totaling approximately $150,000 will be distributed solely to Nathan James Morrison, and finally personal items and one vehicle, a 2014 Honda Accord, will be distributed to Cassidy Ann Morrison. I read it 3 times, standing in that lobby, before my brain would accept what I was seeing. My mother was leaving me her 13-year-old car with 160,000 miles on it and whatever personal items Nathan didn't want. Everything else, the house my father had worked 2 jobs to pay off, the investments had carefully built for his family's future, all of it was going to Nathan. Only Nathan. The justification was listed in cold legal language. Given Cassidy's current instability and uncertain financial situation, this arrangement represents the most prudent distribution of assets to ensure family stability and security for future generations. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the letter. This wasn't about money. Or it wasn't only about money. This was about being told in legal documentation that I was worth nothing. That my children were worth nothing. That my father's legacy would go entirely to my brother while I got whatever scraps no one else wanted. My mother had taken the love and life my father had built, and was giving all of it to her golden child while leaving me with a used car and the family photos nobody cared about. I drove to Mom's house without thinking, without planning what I'd say, running on pure emotion and the desperate need to make her see what she was doing. When I pulled up, the house was transformed. Elaborate light displays covered every inch of the exterior, those expensive synchronized ones that cost thousands of dollars. Through the front window, I could see new furniture in the living room, pieces that definitely hadn't been there the last time I'd visited. She was redecorating, upgrading, preparing to impress Amber's wealthy family while simultaneously cutting me out of any inheritance. I rang the doorbell 3 times before Mom finally answered, and when she did, she only opened the door a crack, not inviting me in. Speaking to me through the gap like I was a solicitor she wanted to dismiss quickly. Cassidy, this isn't a good time. I have a lot to do before Christmas. I got the letter from your lawyer. I held it up, my voice shaking with rage and hurt. You're leaving me nothing. Everything goes to Nathan. Everything Dad worked for. Her face hardened. I'm doing what's best for the family's future. Nathan is more responsible with finances, and he'll be able to maintain the house properly. You've had trouble managing money, and I need to know the family home will be cared for. I'm a registered nurse with a steady job. I was shouting now, past caring if the neighbors heard. Nathan has been fired 3 times in 2 years, has 30 years old and still calls you for money every month. How is he more financially responsible? Has finding his path. Mom's tone was infuriatingly calm. Besides, Amber comes from money. They'll be able to maintain the house in a way that preserves its value. They'll need to maintain certain appearances for their social circle. The truth hit me then like a physical blow. This is about Amber's family. You're social climbing through Nathan's relationship. You want to leave him money and property so he looks successful to them. I'm thinking about the family's future. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Your father isn't here to make these decisions, and I have to do what I think is best. What about Mia and Lucas? My voice cracked. Dad would have wanted them provided for. They're his grandchildren. They'll be fine. You have a job. She said it so dismissively, like the future security of her grandchildren was irrelevant compared to making Nathan look good for his girlfriend's family. So you're erasing us completely. No Christmas, no gifts, no inheritance. We just don't matter at all to you. I was crying now, tears streaming down my face while I stood on my mother's front porch, begging for some sign that she loved me even a little. You're being dramatic. I'm not erasing anyone. I'm making practical decisions about asset distribution. She started to close the door. I think you should leave. You're getting yourself worked up. That's when Nathan's car pulled into the driveway. I watched him get out, watched Amber emerge from the passenger side looking polished and perfect in designer clothes I could never afford, and something in me snapped. Nathan. I called out, did you know about this? About Mom leaving you everything. He barely looked at me, his focus on getting into the house. Cass, what are you doing here? Trying to understand why our mother is erasing me from the family. I gestured at the letter. Did you know about the will? Amber, this woman I'd never met, stepped forward with a sympathetic smile that looked practiced and fake. Mrs. Morrison is just prioritizing her son's future. Surely you can respect that. It's her money and her house to leave to whoever she chooses. The audacity of this stranger defending my exclusion from my own father's legacy left me speechless for a moment. Nathan put his hand on Amber's back protectively, like I was somehow threatening her by existing. Amber's right, Cass. Mom's getting older. She needs to think strategically about what happens to her assets. This isn't personal. Not personal. I stared at my brother, at this person I'd once loved and protected, now standing with his girlfriend defending my complete disinheritance. She's leaving me nothing, nothing, nothing. Everything Dad built, everything he wanted for his family, all going to you, and you think that's not personal. Maybe if you'd made better choices, you'd be in a different position right now. Nathan's voice was cold. Mom has to make decisions based on reality, not sentiment. Amber tugged on his arm. Sweetie, maybe we should go inside. This seems like a private family matter. The irony of her calling it a private family matter while she was literally the reason for the family matter was too much. Mom stepped aside to let them pass. Cassidy, I think you should leave now. You're making a scene, and the neighbors are watching. I looked around and saw she was right. Curtains were twitching in windows across the street, people drawn by the sound of my raised voice. The humiliation washed over me, but underneath it was something harder, something that had been building through every insult and betrayal. You're right, I'll leave, but you need to understand what you're doing. You're choosing strangers over your own daughter and grandchildren. You're destroying our family for social status and a relationship that might not even last 6 months. I hope it's worth it. Well, see you in the new year. After things settled down, Mom's hand was already on the doorknob, ready to shut me out. No. The word came out firm and clear. You won't. I'm done begging you to love me. I'm done exposing my children to people who don't value them. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I walked back to my car with as much dignity as I could manage while my world crumbled around me. I sat behind the wheel and watched through the window as my mother welcomed Nathan and Amber inside with hugs and smiles, saw her gesture excitedly at something in the living room, watched all three of them disappear deeper into the house. My mother was hugging Amber like a daughter, laughing with her, playing the role of warm, welcoming mother-in-law while her actual daughter sat outside in the cold, literally shut out of the family home. I drove back to my apartment in a daze, my mind replaying every moment, every word, trying to find where I could have said something different that would have made her see me, really see me, but there was nothing. This wasn't about anything I'd done or said. This was about who I was to her, which was clearly not enough. I would never be Nathan. I would never be the child she prioritized and protected and provided for. And continuing to hope that someday she'd love me the way she loved him was only destroying me piece by piece. That night I barely made it through the door before collapsing. I don't remember walking from the parking lot to my apartment or unlocking the door, just suddenly being inside with my back against the wall, sliding down to sit on the floor while my whole body shook with sobs I couldn't control anymore. Every defense I'd built, every way I'd told myself that mom loved me even if she didn't always show it right, every excuse I'd made for the favoritism, it all shattered at once, leaving me with nothing but the raw truth that I'd been avoiding my entire life. My mother didn't love me, not really. Maybe she'd loved the idea of having a daughter. Loved having someone to take care of her when life got hard. Loved how I made her look good by being responsible and reliable. But she didn't love me for who I was, didn't value my happiness or my children's well-being. I was useful to her when she needed something, and disposable when Nathan needed the spotlight. I don't know how long I sat there on the floor, but eventually I heard Maya's bedroom door open and her small footsteps padding down the hallway. "Mommy." Her voice was worried, and I looked up to see her standing there in her unicorn pajamas, her hair messy from sleep, her face creased with concern that no 7-year-old should have to feel for her mother. "I'm okay, baby." I tried to wipe my face, to pull myself together, but my hands were shaking and the tears kept coming. "You're crying." She came closer, kneeling down next to me. "Why are you so sad?" I almost told her everything right then, almost let it all pour out, every hurt and betrayal. Made my children carry the weight of understanding exactly how little their grandmother valued them. But I caught myself at the last second, seeing the worry in Maya's eyes and knowing that whatever poison my mother had spread shouldn't infect my children's hearts. They didn't need to know the details of how cruel family could be. They just needed to feel safe and loved, and that was my job to provide. Sometimes grown-ups have sad feelings, just like kids do. I pulled her into a hug, holding her warm, solid body against mine like an anchor. "But I'm going to be okay. We're all going to be okay." "Is it because of Grandma?" Mia asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "Is it because we can't go to her house for Christmas?" "A little bit. Yeah." There was no point lying completely. "But also because I love you and Lucas so much, and I want to make sure you're happy. I'm happy when you're happy, Mommy." She pulled back to look at me seriously. "You don't have to be sad to make us happy." The wisdom in her words hit me hard. I'd been so focused on trying to maintain family connections for my kids that I hadn't realized they could feel my misery, that my constant state of hurt and anxiety was affecting them more than the loss of Grandma's Christmas ever would. The next morning I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I couldn't face patients, couldn't put on the smile and competent demeanor my job required when I felt completely hollow inside. I stayed in bed after the kids left for school, staring at the ceiling, feeling depression settling over me like a heavy blanket I couldn't shake off. What was the point of trying so hard when the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally kept showing me I didn't matter? Rowena showed up around noon, letting herself in with the spare key I'd given her years ago. She had her daughter Sophie with her, and I heard them in the living room with Lucas, who'd stayed home from preschool because I'd been too destroyed to take him. "Cassidy Morrison, you get your butt out of that bed right now," Rowena called down the hallway, her voice mixing love with sternness. I shuffled out in my pajamas, not caring how terrible I looked. Rowena took one look at me and pulled me into a fierce hug while Sophie entertained Lucas with a toy shed brought. "You cannot let them destroy you," she said into my hair. "They don't get to win like this. What's the point?" The words came out flat, emotionless. My own mother doesn't want me. I've spent my whole life trying to be good enough and it was never going to matter. I was never going to be Nathan. Rowena pulled back, holding me at arm's length. "Good, you don't want to be Nathan. Nathan is a selfish, entitled brat who's coasted through life on your mother's money and excuses. You're a strong, intelligent woman who's built a life through her own hard work. You're raising 2 incredible kids by yourself. You're showing up every day even when it's hard. That's worth more than anything Nathan has ever done. Then why does she love him more? My voice broke on the question I'd carried since childhood. Because she's broken, Cass. Some people are just broken in ways that make them incapable of loving right. That's not your fault, and it's not your flaw to fix. Rowena guided me to the couch, sat me down. I need to tell you something. 5 years ago, I cut off my entire family, my mom, my dad, my 2 sisters. They were toxic in different ways, always demanding things from me, never giving anything back, making me feel small and worthless every time I was around them. I'd known Rowena had family she didn't talk to, but I'd never heard the full story. What happened? I finally realized that I was setting myself on fire to keep them warm, and they didn't even appreciate the light. So I stopped. I told them I was done, and I blocked them on everything. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. She took my hand. But you know what? My life got so much better. The constant anxiety went away. I stopped waiting for the phone to ring with another crisis I'd have to solve. I built my own family with friends and Sophie's school parents and people who actually valued me, and now I'm happier than I've ever been. But they're my mom and brother, I said, even as part of me recognized the truth in her words. And they've shown you over and over that they don't respect you, don't value you, don't consider your feelings. At some point, blood relations stops mattering when people repeatedly prove they don't deserve access to your heart. Rowena's voice was gentle but firm. You've been accepting crumbs your whole life, Cass. Settling for the bare minimum of love and calling it family. Your kids are watching you do that, learning that this is what they should accept too. Is that what you want for them? I looked over at Lucas playing happily with Sophie. At my sweet boy who deserved to grow up knowing his worth. Believing that people who loved him would show it through actions, not just words. I thought about Mia and the question Shed asked days ago. Doesn't Grandma want to see us anymore? I'd given her some soft answer then, trying to protect her, but the truth was simpler and more painful. Grandma had chosen social climbing over genuine relationship, had picked strangers with money over her own grandchildren. They deserve better than this cycle, I said quietly, feeling something shift inside me. They do, and so do you. Rowena squeezed my hand. You cannot keep giving pieces of yourself to people who treat you like you're disposable. You have to choose yourself, choose your kids, choose the family you're building here in this apartment over the illusion of family your mother's been selling you. I spent the rest of that day thinking about what Shed said while the kids played and Rowena made dinner in my kitchen. The decision was forming slowly, painfully, but with a clarity I'd never felt before. I could keep begging my mother to love me, keep trying to earn value in her eyes, keep exposing my children to people who'd already shown they didn't care, or I could do the terrifying, liberating thing and walk away. Every part of me that had been trained since childhood to be the good daughter, to keep the peace, to make everything easier for everyone else, screamed against the idea. It was Christmas. Families were supposed to be together at Christmas. What if I was overreacting? What if next year would be different? What if I just tried harder to understand Mom's perspective? But then I remembered Mia's face when I told her we weren't going to Grandma's, the confusion and hurt in her eyes. I remembered Lucas crying for gingerbread cookies. I remembered the letter from the lawyer, my complete erasure from my father's legacy. I remembered watching my mother hug Amber like a daughter while I stood outside in the cold. The answer became clear. This wasn't about me anymore, if it ever had been. This was about protecting my children from learning that love was conditional, that their worth was determined by how useful they were to others, that family meant accepting whatever treatment people chose to give. If I kept tolerating my mother's behavior, I was teaching Mia and Lucas that this was acceptable, that this was normal, that this was what family looked like, and I loved them too much to let them learn those lessons. I woke up 2 days before Christmas with something I hadn't felt in weeks: determination. The fog of depression had lifted enough for me to see clearly what I needed to do, and for the first time since Mom's phone call, I felt like I had some control over my own life. I couldn't control how my mother treated me, but I could control how I responded, and I was done being passive in my own destruction. The first thing I did was call my supervisor at the hospital and pick up an extra shift on Christmas Eve. It was double pay for holiday work, and while I'd normally want to be home with the kids that evening, the extra money meant I could actually buy them the kind of Christmas I wanted them to have. My coworker Bethany, who had 3 kids of her own, immediately offered to watch Mia and Lucas during my shift. "Bring them over. We'll make Christmas cookies and watch movies. They'll love it," she said warmly, and I felt a rush of gratitude for this coworker who was showing more genuine kindness than my own mother had in months. With the extra money secured, I went shopping. Nothing extravagant, but thoughtful things I knew the kids would love. Art supplies for Mia, who'd been begging to try watercolors. A complete dinosaur set for Lucas with figurines and a big volcano. New books for both of them. Stocking stuffers that would make Christmas morning feel special. I bought ingredients for a fancy breakfast: cinnamon rolls, bacon, hot chocolate with the real marshmallows, supplies for making gingerbread houses. Everything needed to create the kind of warm, happy Christmas that had nothing to do with my mother's house or approval. I spent an entire afternoon decorating our apartment, and for the first time it felt like I was doing it for us, not to prove something or meet someone else's standards. Lights went up around all the windows, making our modest space glow warm and inviting. We put up our little tree, artificial and kind of scraggly but perfect for us, and I let Mia and Lucas decorate it however they wanted without worrying about it looking Pinterest perfect. They hung ornaments in clusters, put all their favorites on the bottom branches where they could reach, and the tree was chaotic and beautiful and completely ours. "Mommy, our house looks so pretty," Mia exclaimed, running from room to room to see all the lights. "It's like we have Christmas everywhere." Lucas hugged my legs. "It's the most beautiful house ever." Their excitement was infectious, and I felt something loosening in my chest, that constant knot of anxiety and inadequacy finally starting to unwind. This was enough. This was more than enough. We didn't need my mother's elaborate decorations or expensive house or approval. We had each other, and we were creating something real and loving in this small apartment. I texted Mom one final time, my fingers steady as I typed out words I'd never had the courage to say before. "The kids and I will not be reaching out anymore. We deserve to be treated with respect and love. I hope Nathan's relationship is worth losing your daughter and grandchildren over. But whether it is or not, we're done accepting crumbs and calling it family." I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then immediately blocked her number. The action felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating, like jumping off a cliff but also growing wings. She couldn't call me anymore, couldn't send dismissive texts, couldn't keep hurting me with her words and indifference. It'd taken that power away from her. Within 20 minutes, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to Mom's voice, strained and upset. "Cassidy, why did you block me? This is ridiculous. Call me back immediately. We need to talk about this like adults." I deleted the voicemail without responding. I was done talking like adults when the conversation was always on her terms, when I was expected to listen and accept and never push back on how she treated me. Then Nathan texted from his phone, "You're overreacting. Mom's crying. You need to call her and apologize for that message. You're being cruel." My response was swift. "She's crying?" She uninvited her grandchildren from Christmas, changed her will to erase them from their grandfather's legacy, cut their gift money while increasing yours, and publicly humiliated us. But she's crying? Maybe she should think about why her daughter finally had enough. Nathan, you always make everything about you. Mom has feelings too. She's trying her best to balance everyone's needs. Me. Balancing everyone's needs would have meant including all of us, not just the people who make her look good. She made a choice, and now I'm making mine. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to apologize and actually show up for your niece and nephew. I blocked his number too. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. All the noise, all the criticism, all the demands for me to accept unacceptable treatment suddenly gone. Just silence, and in that silence, I could finally hear my own thoughts without the constant buzz of their judgment and manipulation. I called Rowena next. Can you and Sophie come for Christmas Day? I'm making a big breakfast and we're doing gingerbread houses, and I want the kids to see that family is what we make it, not just who we're related to. We're absolutely coming, Rowena said immediately. Sophie's been asking about Mia anyway. Well, bring cinnamon rolls from that bakery downtown, the fancy ones with cream cheese frosting. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation and growing anticipation. I worked my Christmas Eve shift at the hospital, caring for sick children while their families kept vigil, reminded of how lucky I was that Mia and Lucas were healthy and safe. The work felt meaningful in a way it hadn't in months, my mind clear without the constant weight of my mother's disapproval dragging me down. When I picked up the kids from Bethany's house after my shift, they were buzzing with excitement about Christmas morning. They'd made cookies, watched the Polar Express, helped Bethany's kids write letters to Santa. Miss Bethany's house is so fun. Lucas reported, they have 3 Christmas trees. 3, and she said we can come back anytime. Mia added, she's teaching me how to knit. Look. She showed me a lumpy swatch of yarn that was supposedly the beginning of a scarf, her face glowing with pride. Driving home with them chattering in the back seat, I realized something profound. I'd been so focused on what they were losing by not going to Mom's that I hadn't seen what we were gaining. A community of people who actually showed up for us, who included us without conditions, who valued our presence. Bethany barely knew us but had welcomed my kids into her home on Christmas Eve. Rowena had rearranged her holiday plans to spend Christmas Day with us. These were the people who mattered, who demonstrated through action what my mother only ever promised through empty words. That night, after tucking the kids in, I sat on my couch wrapping presents and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not happiness yet, that would take time to rebuild, but peace. The constant anxiety about what my mother thought, whether I was doing enough, if I could somehow earn her love, it was gone. It stopped fighting a battle I was never going to win because the game was rigged from the start. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, and I almost ignored it until I saw it was from Aunt Lenora. Your mother told me you blocked her and Nathan. She's playing the victim, but I want you to know I support you. What she did was unconscionable. I won't be attending her Christmas either. You and those babies deserve so much better. I cried, reading that text, but they were different tears than I'd been crying. These were tears of validation, of relief, of finally having someone from the family acknowledge that I wasn't crazy, that what had been done to me wasn't okay. I texted back, thank you. That means more than you know. Lenora. She's made her bed. Now she can lie in it. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Give those kids extra hugs from their great aunt. I went to sleep that night feeling lighter than I had in months. Tomorrow was Christmas, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about pleasing anyone, performing for anyone, or pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Tomorrow we were just going to be exactly who we were, and that was going to be enough. Christmas morning arrived with winter sunlight streaming through our apartment windows, turning the ordinary space into something magical through the lens of childhood wonder. I heard Maya's door burst open, followed immediately by her excited squeal of Lucas. Lucas, wake up. It's Christmas. and then both sets of feet thundering down the hallway toward my room. They launched themselves onto my bed in a tangle of flannel pajamas and bedhead, their faces lit up with pure joy. "Can we open presents now? Can we? Please." Lucas bounced on the mattress, unable to contain his energy. "Let's make breakfast first," I said, pulling them both into a hug and breathing in their sleepy kid smell. "Santa said you have to have full tummies before presents." We stumbled into the kitchen together, and I put on Christmas music while we made cinnamon roll casserole and bacon, hot chocolate with extra marshmallows like I'd promised. The kids helped mix ingredients, getting flour everywhere and stealing chocolate chips when they thought I wasn't looking. Lucas wore his Santa hat from last year that was now too small, perched on his head at a ridiculous angle. Mia sang along to every carol, making up her own words when she didn't know the real ones. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. After breakfast, we gathered around our little tree. It'd put out their presents the night before, modest stacks wrapped in paper Mia had helped me choose at the dollar store. When they tore into them, the gratitude and excitement on their faces made every extra hour I'd worked worth it. Mia gasped over her watercolor set, immediately planning her first painting. Lucas roared with his dinosaurs, arranging them in elaborate battles across the living room floor. Then they handed me their gifts, cards they'd made at school with construction paper and glitter glue. Maya's had a drawing of the three of us holding hands under a rainbow, with "Best Mommy Ever" written in her careful printing. Lucas was covered in stickers and said "I love you mommy" with the U spelled U and the whole thing making my heart feel too big for my chest. "These are the best presents I've ever gotten," I told them honestly, tears pricking my eyes. "Better than jewelry?" Mia asked seriously. "Better than anything in the whole world." We were building an elaborate dinosaur city with Lucas' new toys when the doorbell rang. Rowena swept in with Sophie and armloads of food, including the promised fancy cinnamon rolls and what looked like half a bakery besides. "Merry Christmas, family," she announced. And the kids descended on Sophie with excited hugs. The five of us spent the morning playing games, watching Christmas movies, building gingerbread houses that competed for the title of most structurally unsound. Rowena and I drank coffee and talked while keeping one eye on the kids, and I felt something settling inside me that had been shaken loose for months. This was what Christmas was supposed to feel like. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no silent competition for approval. Just people who enjoyed being together, who chose to show up for each other. Around 2 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang again. I opened it to find Aunt Lenora standing there with a genuine smile and her arms full of wrapped presents and grocery bags. "I hope it's okay that I came," she said, suddenly uncertain. "I brought ham and sweet potato casserole and presents for the kids. I just couldn't stand the thought of you all being alone." "We're not alone," I said, stepping aside to let her see the full apartment with Rowena and the kids. "But we're so happy you're here." Lenora set down her offerings and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart. What you did took strength. You chose us too." I reminded her. "You didn't have to. Your mother is my sister, but that doesn't mean I support how she treated you. Sometimes the most loving thing is to hold people accountable." She pulled back and looked at me seriously. "Speaking of which, you should know that Christmas at your mother's house is apparently a disaster." I shouldn't have wanted to know, but I couldn't help asking. "What happened?" Lenora's expression turned wry. "Well, Amber's family showed up expecting something much grander than what your mother could provide. Amber's mother, Patricia, spent the entire dinner criticizing everything. The food wasn't sophisticated enough. The wine was pedestrian. The decorations were provincial. Amber's father made several comments about the house being smaller than he expected and questioned whether Nathan was actually as successful as Amber had led them to believe. I tried to feel satisfaction at my mother's Christmas falling apart, but mostly I just felt sad. And Nathan, according to my friend Janet, who lives next door and overheard some of it through the walls, Nathan spent the whole dinner stressed and sweaty, trying to smooth things over while your mother kept making excuses. Amber herself looked mortified. The whole thing apparently fell apart around 4 o'clock when Patricia announced they had to leave early because they'd already seen quite enough. Your mother tried calling you this morning, by the way, multiple times from different numbers. I didn't answer. I felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt, but maybe acknowledgement of the pain my mother was probably feeling. She made her choice. She did, Lenora agreed, and now she gets to live with it. Actions have consequences, even for mothers. The afternoon continued with an impromptu feast, all of us crowding around my small dining table that wasn't meant to seat 6 people but somehow did. We held hands and Mia said grace, a simple child's prayer about being thankful for family and food and love. I looked around the table at these people who'd chosen to be here, who'd rearranged their own holidays to make sure my kids felt loved and included, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This is the best Christmas ever, Mommy, Mia announced halfway through dinner, her face serious. Even better than Grandma's house. Really? I asked, surprised. You're not sad about missing Grandma's? She shook her head. Grandma's house was pretty, but sometimes it felt like we had to be really careful and quiet. Here we can be loud and silly, and nobody gets mad. I like this Christmas better too, Lucas added through a mouthful of ham. More dinosaurs and less rules. Out of the mouths of children came truth it'd been too tangled up to see. My mother's house had been beautiful but restrictive, full of expectations and judgment. This apartment was small and the furniture was second-hand and nothing matched, but it was filled with acceptance and joy. My kids had figured out what I'd spent 32 years learning. That appearance and blood relation mattered less than genuine love. After dinner, the kids performed an elaborate concert with their new toys, Lucas making his dinosaurs sing carols while Mia did a watercolor painting live as performance art. The adults applauded enthusiastically, and I took pictures on my phone that I knew I'd treasure forever. That evening, after everyone had left, I tucked the kids into bed. Mia hugged her new stuffed animal, a plush owl Lenora had brought. Mommy, can Aunt Lenora and Rowena and Sophie come for Christmas every year? I think we can arrange that, I promised. Lucas grabbed my hand before I could leave. This was my favorite Christmas. We didn't need Grandma's house after all. No, baby, we didn't. I kissed his forehead. We have everything we need right here. After they fell asleep, I sat in the living room, surrounded by the wreckage of the day, wrapping paper scattered everywhere, dishes still piled in the sink, gingerbread crumbs on every surface, and felt completely content. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, and against my better judgment, I checked it. It was from Mom. Please call me. Today was terrible. I made a mistake. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time, feeling the old pull to fix things, to make it better, to accept whatever scraps of remorse she was offering. But then I looked at the photos on my phone from today, at Maya's face covered in frosting, at Lucas' pure joy with his dinosaurs, at all of us crowded around the table laughing. This was what mattered. This was what I wanted to protect. I deleted the message without responding and put my phone away. Maybe someday we'd have a conversation. Maybe someday she'd do the real work of changing and rebuilding trust. But that day wasn't today, and I wasn't going to let her guilt or regret pull me back into the cycle. Today had been perfect exactly as it was, and I refused to taint it by engaging with someone who'd only reached out because her plan backfired, not because she genuinely understood what she'd done wrong. I went to sleep that night feeling something I hadn't felt since before my divorce, maybe even longer than that: hope. Not naive hope that everything would magically work itself out, but grounded hope in my own strength, in my kids' resilience, in the family we were building from people who actually showed up. The next few months unfolded with unexpected grace. Mom did start therapy, according to Lenora, and called once a week with careful, respectful conversations that stayed surface level while we both figured out if real healing was possible. I set strict boundaries about the kids, agreeing to supervised short visits at neutral locations like parks or restaurants. Never at her house where she held all the power. She showed up to those visits on time, brought appropriate gifts, asked the kids questions, and actually listened to their answers. It was awkward and tentative, but it was something. Nathan sent an apology letter 3 months after Christmas, a long rambling thing that acknowledged his part in the exclusion and asked for forgiveness. I read it twice and then put it in a drawer without responding. I wasn't ready yet, might never be ready, and that was okay. Forgiveness wasn't something I owed anyone. It was a gift to be given only when I was healed enough to give it without hurting myself. I started my own therapy, processing a lifetime of feeling like I was never enough. Learning to recognize the patterns of favoritism and emotional manipulation that had shaped my entire relationship with my mother. My therapist helped me see that none of it was my fault, that I couldn't have loved her into loving me right, that some people are simply broken in ways that make them incapable of the unconditional love parents should have for their children. The most surprising change was in myself. I got a promotion at work after finally advocating for myself instead of staying quiet and hoping someone would notice my efforts. I moved us to a better apartment in a neighborhood with good schools and a playground within walking distance. I built real friendships with other single moms I met at school pickup, creating a network of support and community. Rowena and her daughter became like family, standing in the gap my mother had left. Mia and Lucas thrived in the stability it created, growing more secure and confident each month. They stopped asking about Grandma so much, stopped waiting for disappointment or rejection. They knew they were loved completely and unconditionally, and that knowledge settled into their bones in a way that would shape their entire lives. Spring came with the question of Easter. Mom asked tentatively if she could host, if we might come to her house for a family dinner. I thought about it carefully, talked it through in therapy, and finally responded, maybe we can do brunch out together at a restaurant. Small steps. The kids and I aren't ready for your house yet. She agreed without argument, which told me the therapy might actually be working. We met at a quiet diner, neutral territory, and spent 2 hours having a stilted but peaceful meal. Mom asked about the kids' school, admired drawings they'd brought to show her, didn't make a single comment about my parenting or life choices. It wasn't warm, wasn't the reunion of a Hallmark movie, but it was civil and safe, which was more than we'd had before. After brunch, I had a conversation with Mia who'd been quiet on the drive home. Is Grandma nice now? She asked, her child's brain trying to categorize people into simple boxes of good and bad. Grandma is learning to be better, I answered carefully. And we're learning what we deserve. Sometimes people hurt us, and we have to decide if they've changed enough to trust them again. We're taking it slow, and that's okay. I like our Christmases with Rowena and Sophie better, Mia admitted. Is that bad? No, sweetheart. That's you knowing what makes you feel happy and safe. You get to have your own feelings about people, even if they're family. Looking back now, months later, I understand that Christmas was the worst and best thing that could have happened to us. Worst because it forced me to see painful truths I'd been avoiding my whole life, to acknowledge that my mother's love had always been conditional, and that my brother had never really valued our relationship. The rejection hurt in ways that still ache sometimes when I'm not expecting it. But it was also the best thing because it forced necessary change. I stopped setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. I stopped accepting crumbs and calling it family. I stopped teaching my children that love meant tolerating mistreatment. I finally understood that I wasn't the one who broke our family. I was the one who stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. I think about my father sometimes, wonder what he would think of how things turned out. I hope he'd be proud that I chose to protect his grandchildren, that I stood up for myself even when it was terrifying, that I refused to let the cycle of favoritism continue into another generation. I hope he'd understand that loving his memory meant not letting his widow destroy the family he'd tried to build. The upcoming Christmas feels different already. Mia and Lucas are planning our decorations, talking about traditions they want to repeat and new ones they want to start. Rowena's already blocked off the day to spend with us. Lenora called to ask what she should bring, and Mom, when I mentioned Christmas in a phone call last week, simply said, "I understand if you're not ready to include me yet. I'm working on showing you I've changed, and I know that takes time." That response, more than anything, gives me hope that maybe, eventually, we can rebuild something real. Not what we had before, which was broken and unequal, but something new built on mutual respect and healthy boundaries. Or maybe we want. And that will be okay too, because I've learned that I don't need my mother's approval to be enough. I look at Mia reading on the couch, at Lucas building an elaborate blanket fort, at this life we've created in our modest apartment, and I feel rich beyond measure. We have each other. We have people who show up consistently with love and support. We have peace and laughter and a home that feels safe instead of performative. Mommy, will Grandma come for Christmas this year? Mia asks, looking up from her book. I don't know yet, sweetie. Well, see how things go. But whether she does or not, we're going to have a beautiful Christmas. Because we're a family. Lucas pipes up from inside his fort. Exactly. I tell them, my heart full. We're a family. And nothing can change that. And that's the truest thing I know. Family isn't just who you're related to by blood. It's who shows up when things get hard. It's who celebrates your joy and sits with you in your pain. It's who makes space for you without conditions or requirements. It's who sees you at your worst and loves you anyway. My mother's rejection forced me to find my real family, and in doing so, I found myself. I discovered that I'm stronger than I thought, braver than I believed, worthy of unconditional love. I learned to protect my children by protecting myself. To break cycles by refusing to repeat them, to create the family I always wanted by choosing people who chose me back. So now when people ask if I reconciled with my mother, if we're close again, if things went back to normal, I tell them the truth. Things didn't go back to normal because normal was toxic. We're building something new, and whether that includes my mother long-term remains to be seen. But my kids and I were more than okay. We're thriving, we're loved, we're free, and this Christmas, the one that broke everything open, will always be remembered as the year we finally chose ourselves. The year we learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. The year we discovered that family is what you make it, not what you're born into. The year we became enough, exactly as we are. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members, especially during the holidays? How did you handle it? Drop your experiences in the comments below, because I think so many of us are navigating these same painful situations and we need to know we're not alone. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more real stories about family, healing, and choosing yourself. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect your peace, even from family. Your support means everything and helps these stories reach people who need them most. And remember, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You deserve love that doesn't come with conditions. Your children deserve to see you value yourself, and sometimes the most powerful word you can say is no. Thank you for listening to my story. Whatever you're going through with your own family, I hope you find the strength to choose what's healthiest for you and the people you love. Wishing you all peace, healing, and holidays filled with people who actually deserve you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and may you always know your worth.